How we do it. Investors and entrepreneurs together.
Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Brittany Barreto, and I am a global women's health innovation expert, and I am just so excited to be here in this incredible, beautiful venue. I've taken so many selfies. I don't know about you. Everyone should be jealous on your LinkedIn. Look at this panel. It is not called Women in MedTech. Surprise, it is. This is a lineup of incredible innovators and investors, and Giovanni really put me up to the task to moderate a 45-minute panel with this many panelists. But you know what? We're women, and we got this, right? So what we're going to be doing is asking questions of which everyone actually gets the opportunity to answer using their dry erase board. So ladies, make sure you write big, bold letters so everyone can see your answer. And then for each question, 2 or 3 or you, we need one more board. Julie, can you help me look in my little health bag in front of you? There's one more board. Thank you. And they will all be answering with one-word answers, and each question gets 2 or 3 elaborate answers on why they picked that word. So first and foremost, let's kind of kick it off with learning a little bit more about our panelists. And so who here is a founder? Raise your hand. Excellent. Who here is an investor? There we go. Pass this on down. And have you ever started a company before, the 2 investors as well? No? How about you? Have you started? No. Excellent. This is so great. It's kind of like a little, what is that, Family Feud? We're doing a little Family Feud here. So let's first kind of go down and everyone just introduce yourself, your company, where your company is based, and what you do in a reasonable amount of time. Let's kick it off.
Hi, I'm Laura Indolfi. I'm the founder and CEO of PanTher Therapeutics. We are based in Boston, Massachusetts, and Austin, Texas. The company is a clinical stage oncology company. We are leveraging minimal invasive procedure to bring therapeutics directly at the tumor site so that we can maximize effects for solid tumor while minimizing side effects. We are in the clinic with our first product for pancreatic cancer, and we have a second product in development.
Super impressive. Oh my goodness.
Hi, Carolina Aguilar, co-founder and CEO of INBRAIN Neuroelectronics. We develop a graphene-based high-density and high-resolution platform for applications in central and peripheral nervous system. We have 2 products. The first one is imminent to be in first-in-human. The second has FDA breakthrough designation. We are based in Barcelona, but we are global as well.
Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Joana Cartocci. I'm co-founder and COO of Robeauté. At Robeauté, we are developing a neurosurgical micro-robot to diagnose, deliver, and monitor brain therapies. And today we are in our first-in-animal trials, very exciting times. And Bertrand, my co-founder, will be giving a presentation of the technology just right after. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Micro-brain robots, no big deal.
Hello, my name is Kathy Skinner. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NextGen Port, and we're based in Minnesota as well as other states around the US. We are in oncology, and we're taking a chemotherapy port that's been used for decades, adding microelectronics to it to make it smart. So think about dumb phone to smartphone, dumb thermostat to smart thermostat. We're leveraging a product that's been in the market forever and had a great opportunity to reimagine it as a remote patient monitoring device. We're in a seed round of funding and looking forward to the panel. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Juliana Elstad. I'm CEO of Vibrato Medical. Vibrato Medical is a medical device company that uses ultrasound as a therapy for vascular disease. We are doing our second clinical trial right now. The results of our first clinical trial are going to be announced in a couple of weeks at VIVA, which is a major vascular conference.
Hi, everyone. I'm Darshana Zaveri. I'm a managing partner and co-founder of Catalyst Health Ventures. We invest in MedTech, medical devices, some diagnostics, and digital health. We're based in Boston.
Good morning, everyone. I'm from Sagana Capital. We invest on behalf of family offices, foundations, and corporates across human and planetary health. In healthcare specifically, we work on the world's biggest killers and trying to find solutions that that allow more access and affordability. We're based out of Zurich, but we're a global team spread across, let's say, all continents at this point.
I had the extreme honor of having a prep call with each of these ladies, and I cannot tell you the experience, the successes, the milestones they've hit. It's absolutely mind-boggling how much progress you have made for healthcare in general, but also for your businesses. And today's panel is called Investors and Entrepreneurs, How We Do It Together. And so what I'll be doing is asking a question, and each of them will be writing one word, and we'll be asking to elaborate a little bit, and then maybe have a little dialogue about it. So you have your pens ready? Yes. All right, so the first question is, please write one word, one or two, if it's a two-word answer, it's fine, as to what makes a great investor. What makes a great investor? Write it down. The pen is on the side of the thing. Did it fall off? Excellent. We'll get you one. Perfect. And hold it up for the audience to see. What makes a great investor? Oh, yes. All right. Juliana, what did you write?
So I wrote network. A typical institutional investor has a lot of companies in their portfolio, and plus if they've been doing it for 10, 15, 20, who knows how many years, they usually have a fantastic network. And it's not that CEOs don't have their own network, but a great investor will also bring their network to your disposal, and very often it just puts your game to the next level.
Amazing. And I'd love everyone to continue to hold their signs up, because I know we have very fast readers in the audience, but let's just keep them held up while we continue to answer, okay? Network, absolutely. The network is something that founders can be able to tap into their investors. That's an excellent, excellent point. Joana, you wrote risk-taking. Interesting. Why is risk-taking an important factor for an investor?
So this is a little bit provocative. Of course, there are different profiles of investors. Here I'm really referring to investors that can see the long-term game and gain, because when you're creating a technology such as ours, that has the potential to revolutionize how neurosurgery is performed, you want to make sure that you have investors that embark with you for the long run. And there is a specific category of investors that has been extremely value-adding and insightful to us as a company, which are early-stage business angels. We have raised over half of the capital, the equity that we've raised to date with business angels, and they've been critical in advising, opening doors, so networking, and of course bringing in funds, because they're investing their own money, and so that allows them to, be unencumbered when it comes to investing, and that's pretty cool.
Isn't it funny how investors are working in some of the most high-risk industries, and yet their job is actually to be de-riskers? And so having an investor that's willing to take risk, very, very useful quality to have. Now, we also have, Sanchita, you wrote expectations. Expectations as an important quality of an investor. Why did you write that?
Yeah, I think expectations come in play, both before the investment and after the investment. And by expectations, I mean it's the job of the investor to understand the market, the problem, the solution, or try their best to at least, have an understanding. And that, I think, comes from the expertise. We're specialist advisors, we're specialist investors, and I think that is essential to having the right expectations of founders. And by that I mean, when you're seeing a pitch deck, you see a million pitch decks, every day and every year. It's the job of the investor to sort of see through the BS, I'd say, and be like, okay, this, not overly expect, growth from investors, but also be realistic on what happens in the market. But also after the investment, we work closely with our founders, that's the job. And having unrealistic expectations can do more damage to the founder sometimes. And I can give you many examples of our own portfolio companies where, yes, it's a SaaS business, but it's not a consumer SaaS business. So you cannot have the same growth rates of the consumer SaaS business. That's just one example to show that as a founder, I would look for investors that have expertise, sector expertise, to be able to do the job for them and not just, just wire the money.
Excellent. I love that. Start to erase your boards. We get ready for the next question. Expectations are absolutely critical because you could have an investor that is, inexperienced in an industry and asking you to do something that is literally impossible and or bad for the business. Sometimes taking your time, I kind of find that as the feminine energy. Sometimes it's a little bit slower than the masculine. Build things, break things, fail fast, right? Sometimes it's like, we should maybe have some intention here, especially when we're in something like healthcare, right? Where people's lives are on the line and high quality is so critical. All right, our next question is, write one word as to what makes a great founder. Ooh, great founder. Let's see. One or two words. And Darshana, I'd love to start with you. Flip your boards when you're ready, everybody. What makes a great founder?
Sorry, I couldn't get it all in one word.
That is fair. You're a risk taker, rule breaker. I love it.
But I tried to start them all with the same letter.
Perfect.
So
You're also very creative. Perfect. Why did you write that? Hard work, humility, and honesty. Why are those the great qualities of a founder?
I think hard work, everybody knows that, right? I don't have to say it to this audience. You have to have tremendous grit and determination and passion and hard work. It's just table stakes. I'd like humility. It sort of correlates with my earlier answer of curiosity. The investor needs to be curious because every company is different and has its own challenges. But the CEO founder needs to be humble and realize that they can't solve every problem on their own. They need help, and they need to reach out to whoever they need to reach out to. And then honesty, just super, super important, because you don't want to hide issues. You don't want to throw them up, wrap them up. You want to be honest with your investors and just say it like it is, and understand that people are there to help you.
As a serial entrepreneur myself, I can find myself sometimes, not that I'm being dishonest, but sometimes I'm not updating my investors enough or as frequently, so it can almost maybe come off as dishonest as to what's happening, but it's kind of more of a like, I'm sorry, I've just been working on it, right? And so that's a really interesting point. Kathy, you wrote grit. Ooh, we have several grits up here. Tell me why you wrote grit.
Mostly because of the effort that it takes over time, and grit also means scrappy to me, and creative, and not taking no for an answer, thinking about creative workarounds. My first career was actually coaching college women's volleyball, so I have a lot of experience with working with different types of athletes and different roles. And whether it's my team or it's investors that have different perspectives, it's how do you meet them where they are at? And that takes a certain amount of grit and scrappiness and resilience to work with diverse sets of people and make them all play to their area of strength and really bring them into the team.
Being a founder is not easy. You gotta be a little bit crazy and a whole lot of grit to be a founder. You wrote grit too. Why was that, Laura?
Well, because I really think that being, creative, being persistent, don't drop the ball once you got it, that it's really what you need to make the progress, because every day you are constantly facing challenges and facing pivot and things to change. Mm-hmm. And so you need to really have that fire inside that makes you want to go and find a solution and trying to find a way around. I also think that founders and CEO in general, but especially founders, they need to be coming from a place of knowing that they don't know everything, mm-hmm. and they need to make space for finding advice, for looking out of their box, to find expertise somewhere else, so that you don't have any blind spot or you don't have any pitfall that others may have already had, and you can learn from their experiences.
So humility, again, as well as
different
that
way of saying
yep,
it. Yes,
that's right. And Carolina, what did you write?
So, a team builder that executes.
Team builder that executes. That's not one word, but I'll allow it.
A CEO and a founder is nothing without a team that executes. And it's not about, a group of people that work together. It's a team that really can make the vision happen. And I believe so much on people and the culture around it to be able to achieve the mission that, well, that's what I consider centered. By the way, grit is one of our company values, so totally with you.
Juliana, you wrote experience. Tell us about that.
Well, I struggled a little bit to find one word for a CEO and founder. So I think experiences kind of encompasses what all ladies were saying before me. So, you know, if you're experienced, you failed probably some point in your career. That makes humility. You know, you need to be honest, because if you're experienced, whatever you told before, you know, people know if you executed on it or not, if what you said were true or not. So I think, to me, experience was just more encompassing of a lot of different things.
Well, I'm going a little off script. This brings something up that I've noticed in a lot of our individual prep calls, was the idea of investors love serial successful entrepreneurs, but oftentimes as a female founder, this is oftentimes our first shot that we're doing this, right? We don't get as many opportunities to do it. And so we have experience, but then we also have team builder, right? And so having the team building skill means you don't necessarily need to be that person who was the winner again and again. You are building that team of other successful people around you, and that can elevate you. Who here is a first-time founder? Raise your hand. Excellent. How many companies have you two started? Yeah, Kathy, and you've started 3. All in cancer though, right? So, okay, interesting. Two. Interesting. And the investors, do you typically invest in serial entrepreneurs or first-time founders? What's your opinion on the difference between the two?
It's both. It's diversification. We have actually an equal number of first-time founders and returned serial entrepreneurs.
So just like this panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with us. It's both. I'd say for the first-time founders, it's really their ability to get experienced people on the board and advisors, and that's it. That's all you need. People advising you and being open to taking advice.
Yeah, that humility. Once again, we're having a lot of recurring themes. Let's race our dry erase boards and get ready for our next question. How is this format? This is pretty fun, huh? We love, oh my gosh, I've never had such a quick thumbs up from an audience before. I usually have to be like, come on. So this is going great, ladies. Look at us. So the next question is, what is the most useful thing an investor can do for a founder beyond a check? So investors apparently are good for more than just money. What is it? What is something an investor can provide that's useful to a founder beyond a check? Let's see what it is. Let's see what it is. Oh, we got some good ones coming up here. Oh, I love it. Juliana, you wrote advice. What kind of advice? Why would you say that?
Well, I think a good investor has a lot of experience, right? And so sometimes you think you focus on your company and there is an issue that you're trying to solve. There is a good chance that someone already had similar issue before you. And there is a chance that either they solved it or at least they made some progress. So listen to your institutional investors who have their portfolio companies, because sometimes they say something not because they just thought about it on the spot, but because they maybe dealt with the same issue with another company 2 years ago or maybe 2 hours ago on the call. So I think with my company, like we are home-based therapy and reimbursement is a big question. And so my investor said like, hey, you know, like, here is another company in our portfolio, and they looked at this, and here is another company, and they tried to do that, you know, and that was very helpful.
Okay, how fun is this? I didn't know what the answers were going to be when we prepped for this. I just told them what the questions were. Do you see the trend? The founders, a lot of them, almost all wrote connection and network, and the investors both wrote listening and soundboarding. How interesting. I love the trend here. Laura, why did you write network?
Well, because it goes back to the point of, you don't know everything and you are facing a lot of things as you evolve your company. And, having the right investors, they've invested in the space. They have other company in their portfolio, as Juliana was saying, that they may have gone through the same process. and having access to their network, to their knowledge, not just from their personal learning, but also for what they have seen in the space and in the environment, that kind of capitalize on the expertise that we can bring in-house. And that contributes to the success of the company overall. So I think it will be, it is a really good features to have around.
Let's reiterate that the success of the company is not solely on the founder. It is a combination of the investor and the founder and many other people. So if you're a founder in the audience, I know oftentimes for female founders, we feel like the full responsibility is on our shoulders. Let a little bit of that go. Let a little bit of that go and share it. Share it with your investors. Joana, you also wrote mentoring. So you're a first-time founder. Is that something to do with that?
Absolutely. I think in general, based on the answers we got for the prior question, the idea of always learning, of always upgrading yourself. I think that's what's also the most exciting for me as a founder, is to keep learning, to keep upgrading and feeling like I'm growing. And so mentoring is really that dialogue that you can establish with people that have the experience or that can give you access through connections, networking, introductions to other individuals, founders, or people in the same position or that have gone through your same questions and thought processes that could be helpful to you. And so, yes, definitely.
May I say something?
Of course, please jump in, yeah.
I think this is where maybe there is a gender difference. I've noticed, and also it's my first time, but I noticed that especially in the US, investors want the founders and the CEOs to have all the answers and to never hesitate and to, have a straight pathway. And if you ask for mentoring, it's like a weakness, right? You are supposed to know everything, and look, sometimes we are building this plane as we fly it, so there's questions nobody knows, and there's no even previous benchmark. And of course, I actually find hesitation a sign of strength instead of weakness. So I don't know if, I don't want to derail at all, but for future panels, maybe there is a question to debate.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing that adds up to the question that came earlier with investors is we found, both my co-founder and I, very precious mentorship among the business angel community also, because many of them are entrepreneurs or were entrepreneurs. Some of them lead funds but have invested personally as business angels, and they come with a lot of knowledge. And to get out of your own way and ask those questions and have people in front of you that actually welcome uncomfortable questions and the fact that you do not know everything, because in some cases the blueprint does not exist and you're learning along the way. That is extremely valuable.
Well, we have two investors on stage. Let's ask them. How do you guys feel? I mean, you have listening and soundboarding, so it sounds like you want your founders to be humble and ask you and say, I don't know, give me some advice. How do you balance that? I want to invest in a founder who knows what they're doing, is confident and not hesitating, but at the same time is humble and coming to you for advice. How do you balance that? Any advice for the founders in the audience or investors?
I think no one knows exactly what they're doing. I mean, not the investor, not the entrepreneur. Innovation is so difficult. Even if you're doing it for the fifth time, you don't know exactly what you're doing every single moment. And I think the worst thing I love what everybody's been saying. So I like the idea of advice. I'd love to be advising. I'd love to be bringing my network to the table. But if I don't listen and understand what the question really is, then I'd probably be giving the wrong advice. And I think that's the worst thing that an investor can do, is to just rely on prior experience and say, okay, this is the answer. That may not be the answer, because every challenge is so different.
What do you think about investor humility? And I want to hear from you too about this, but just really quickly, sometimes I find that I will ask an advisor or an investor for feedback, and they give me feedback that I'm like, I really know that is not the right rule, but you're just not eyeballs deep in it as I am, and so I could see why you think that's the answer. Where do you think humility on the investor side come in? Who do they ask for advice?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I think you have to turn back to your CEO. You have to have a really honest and open conversation. And if they tell you you're not, okay, that's not really the issue, then you have to say, okay, maybe I'm wrong. And that's okay. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've had investors on my board, meaning other investors, who've said, why can't you just? There is this, why can't you just? You can't just, because it's so difficult every single time. I think it's humility goes both ways.
I love that. You can't just.
I think for me is asking the questions, and I hate to be this person on these calls, right? And I'm always asking a gazillion questions, and that's how you navigate through. Like, how do you break down an issue? Ultimately, it goes down to every founder faces issues. And then you have to break it down, but how do you break it down? And the only thing I can do, I feel, in those calls is, help them think in a ways that they haven't probably. And see, there's also, I was an operator myself before. I was working on commercialization, so there's something I can give as an example of we did it this way, or maybe try it this way. You can, but there's always it might not work in this industry, it might not work in this therapy. So I think asking questions and just coaching them rather than the person, not just being the problem solver, sometimes does more. And these are smart people, right? If you invested in them because you believe in them, they're smart people. They can get there, or you wouldn't have invested in them. So it's believing in them.
That was a lesson I had to learn as a founder myself. Was I oftentimes actually was the smartest person in the room, at least in the category I was working on, and I was always feeling this power dynamic. Well, they're the investors, they're the ones who know, right? And then they started to ask questions. My first company was a DNA-based dating app. We should definitely have wine, talk about that later. But I realized I'm the geneticist in the room. They ain't geneticists. They don't know, and don't be that intimidated. So if you're a founder here, you're pitching. Oftentimes you are the smartest person in that room on your topic. Own that space. Own it, okay? I love this. This has been so awesome. My last question for the remaining time we have, so let's erase our boards. Now, you didn't think it was a Women in MedTech panel, but surprise, it is. And so our last question is, how can we get more women in MedTech? What is one way, specifically for this audience, because I love to give a good ask, and I love to give a good call to action. So let's wrap up this panel by talking about what is that call to action. What is one way this audience could get more women in MedTech? Preferably in leadership roles, but nevertheless. How do we get more women in MedTech? Mercedes, thank you. Thank you. Oh. I'm excited to see. The one word advice has just gone out the window. I love this. I would love to just kind of actually go down the line. We'll come back to you, Laura. Let's kick you off. Go ahead.
Yes, so I say...
And what does it say? Summer internships before
invite
university.
Women to companies for summer internships before university.
Ooh, okay.
So what I've noticed along these years is that ladies are intimidated by having only men in engineering careers, in STEM careers. So by the time that they want to choose what career path, they said, man, if I go into engineering, it's going to be only me. And I'm scared about that, and I don't know if I can make it. So we've been already piloting this for a couple of years, and we brought very young people, 17 years old, average, to understand and to talk to the female engineers in the company that it's fine and that, it's normal and they are equally capable or even more. And, to have those conversations before they are confronted with a choice of which career to take.
I've had interns as young as high school. These are smart. Kids are today are like really high quality. If you are an organizer, you should have a whole team of interns here helping. If you're a fund, you should have a whole team of interns helping you with deal memos. If you're a founder, you got plenty of stuff that you need Googling and thrown into a Google Sheet, right? Let's get those young female students involved so they can see themselves and know, I am totally capable. I love that. Laura, what did you write?
I got two, like one is give opportunity, like listen and don't be biased and trying to, we need people to invest, we need people to give advice, so kind of see us in a sense. And then the other one, it's more like from the other side, from the, like Carolina was saying, like share what is possible for women. I think that I am an engineer, my family were all lawyers. I went into engineering and I was one of the few, and then I went to MIT and I was one of the few doing business. So if you show what others can do, then there is an opportunity to say, that's not only a male-dominated field. I can do, if I can do it, somebody else can do it too. So you just need to be really willing to hard work and to do it. So visibility across the spectrum, like.
Something I heard in that as well is share your story. If you're a woman in this room, share where you've come from, right? I am the first person in my family to go to college, let alone a PhD, like wild child over here, but like I shared that story of, I wasn't set up to, I didn't know you could be a doctor without being an MD until I was in college. I can literally remember meeting a PhD and they were called doctor, and I was like, so you're a medical doctor? And they're like, no, like you can be a doctor without being a medical doctor. And I say that story not to like embarrass myself that I was like 21 when I learned that, but I didn't come from that background. Like no one told me that, right? And how exciting that I got to learn you could be a doctor without being a medical doctor. And when I share that story, it's here I am on stage, I'm a geneticist PhD, right? But you can share that journey with women and say, you don't have to have been set up for this life. You just have to keep going forward and you can have it too. I love that. Joana, you wrote hire more women in leadership roles. Tell us more about that.
Very simple. I think it's quite self-explanatory. Of course, it's part of a larger answer, but I think, this is a male-dominated industry. Historically, we're seeing more women, thank God, and it's very basic. Hire more women. Make sure women are always at the table where decisions are being made. Make sure you fund women's companies. Make sure you add tables, you keep the doors open, you ask for insight, actively ask for their insight. And just on a wider note, I think it's among women, but also among all genders, celebrate women's success. Not only when they become mothers, but when they get the job they want, when they get the funding they need for their project to succeed, and when they reach those milestones that are important for them, for us, because that's where it all starts. And if we get to where we are, it's because we've been not to hell but to the moon and back. So celebrate with us. Thank you.
If you're not in a hiring position, two things you can do is if you're showing up and there's no women in the room, and if you're a man or if you're the one woman, ask to bring one other woman. If you're the man, you have total authority to say, can I bring one other person to this Zoom call, and pick a woman, right? And then the other thing that you said was, that I heard was the advocacy and the hype. Be a hype woman, be a hype man. When a woman in your team does something well, say, hey, Juliana, you did that, and that was awesome. Everyone, let's give a round, like a little yes. Right? Just those little moments helps remind people of what the women are contributing in the team. I love that. You wrote bias, Kathy. What's bias?
Well, just gonna open it up and go for it. So I started my first company in 2005, and the conversations around female founders, women-led venture firms, those conversations weren't happening. And I'm very pleased to say that today those conversations are happening. But I don't believe in my lifetime that I'm going to see significant growth in investment in women's companies. But I'm doing this work because I hope that in the lives of my daughters and the life of my son, that they will experience less bias. So I ask that as you enter into this world and have these conversations, the conversations need to happen because that's the first step. Check your own bias. I know I have some. Yesterday, I said to an investor, "You're part of the bros." I was like, "Bros." I was like, "Ooh, bias, hello." So yes, forward the conversations so that in the lifetime of our children, we won't have to have these conversations. And we won't have to say, well, where's the woman at the table? Because it's not even going to be an issue. It's just a norm.
Kathy, do you have any advice for people who, how can they see their own bias, and or if you hear somebody else say something that would be considered bias, how can you approach them in a respectable way without shaming them or outing them?
So I'm a big fan of questions. And so approaching with kindness, coaching with kindness. How would you parent your own child? What would you say to a kid when they step out of line? Well, you'd say, now think about how would you feel if that was you? It's so simple. And teach and impart empathy. Then I think that's a great first step. I would also say anchor your questions in data. So while we're a very intuitive group up here, we're highly emotionally intelligent. We can drive the conversations when we anchor it in the data that proves that the work that we're doing in our companies is going to make a huge difference in the lives of patients.
Data first, I'm all for it. Data driven, let's do it. Juliana, you wrote encouragement.
Yeah. I think research shows that women need more encouragement in general. And I have a couple stories to tell you.
Ooh, tell us some stories.
So there was a board meeting, and there was a new project that the company was starting, and not my company board meeting, but another one I'm on the board of. So the company asked, like, okay, who thinks they can lead this project? And there was definitely a woman who was more qualified than other members, and she did not raise her hand. But the man did. And so then when approached and said, like, why didn't you raise your hand? She says, like, oh, I think I only have 80% of the skills required. I don't have the full 100. The men who raised their hands, they had maybe 30% of skills required. That didn't stop them. And even when you were talking about your experience, like how you were probably the smartest person in the room, but you still at the beginning didn't realize that, and thought like, oh, like those investors, they know something I don't know. Like that's so common for women in general. And so the other thing is, I think about 6 months ago, I was in a meeting women business leaders in healthcare, and there were about 300 C-level executive women in the room. And the speaker asked a question, how many of you have heard no in your career? No to the opportunity you're pursuing, to the promotion you think that you deserved. Every single woman raised her hand. So now I'm telling other women, like, if you hear no, it's just part of your path to the C-suite. Just remember that.
Oh, I love, yes, let's give a little bit of that. Ladies in the audience, who here has heard no? Raise your hand. I'm just going to blame the lights. I don't see too many hands, or maybe we just have a very excellent audience. That is such fantastic advice. You know, recently they kind of reanalyzed the, you know, why aren't women applying for these jobs? Is it because women have low self-esteem? They don't think they're good enough for it? And they reanalyzed the results and they said, no, it's not that women just don't think they're good enough. It's that they are rule abiders. That they said, well, you said these are the qualifications that you need for this role, and I'm a rule abider, and I'm capable of reading very critically, and I know I only have 8 of the 10. And so, in fact, one of the other suggestions beyond just encouragement and self-esteem is fucking break rules, right? If they suggest this and you got most of it, oh, you are golden. Go for it. If you think you need to stay in this lane, please step out of it. Please inch over here and inch over there. Right? Do you ladies agree? Right? Break rules, break a rule. You can break one or two. You can do it.
Can I add a little
Please.
nuance on this? Because that's so true from the women perspective. But there has been also another article that was published into the Harvard Reviews and at HBS that showed that investors ask men, like men CEO, more of vision questions, where this company can go, what is the market, what's the potential. It's all about the vision and the growth and the execution. And they tend to ask women entrepreneurs more about the pitfall. How do you know that this is going to work? How are you going to solve for that problem? How do you know? So there is bias both ways. Like the women tend to feel that they are not fully capable even if they are exceeding it. But there is also bias on the other side on how they approach the conversation.
Absolutely. So we need more advocates in the room that hear that question and maybe even pipe up and try to change it in the moment, right? Or
I mean, they are both valid. Like
Yeah.
you want to know, you should, if you have those, you should have both. You should
Yeah.
have what's the growth, what's the vision, what's the pie in the sky, but also how are you looking for the pitfall? Is when there is only one or the other that
Yeah.
becomes more of a challenge.
I mean, that's equality, right? Speaking of investors, let's hear from you. Again, the question is, how do we get more women in MedTech? Your responses?
I mean, so much has been said already. I love what I've heard so far. I'm going to go a little bit more tangible, concrete, and give an example of my own company. And I can't shout out loud enough how happy I am to have found the place that I work in now. And that's about the workplace, like building practices that welcome women. It's not just about getting women in because, I don't believe in, the ratios or, just because you got a woman there, like the job is done, or just because you invested in a female founder, oh wow, I'm so cool. No, I changed careers 2 years ago, and I interviewed, quite a few funds and quite a few places, and some places I just didn't want to work in, and because they don't have any flexible workplace. If I were to have a child one day, if I don't want to have a child one day, I'll give an example of what happened when I joined Sagana. There's a colleague of mine. She wasn't on maternity leave yet, so she was pregnant, but she was about to leave, 3 months after. She got promoted before going on maternity leave to a senior director position. That never happens. Like those kind of things get through the news because when have you ever seen a woman being promoted before going on maternity leave? And because, a lot of women fear going out of, a job for, even if it's for 6 months, 3 months, or a year, and they're afraid, am I gonna have my job when I come back? How long will I have to reprove myself to, get that promotion? And that's what I mean by building that welcoming workplace and having the practices in place that are, catering towards the needs of, women. Whether the woman decides to become a mother or not, or whether the woman is, taking care of someone else, but it is shown that women kind of are associated with the caring of parents, children, family members, but you need to have a workplace that welcomes that. They're smart people. This woman, she's a badass, but she now wants to come back from maternity leave because she thinks that, these people value me, regardless of my, home conditions. That I've never seen, honestly.
I work in women's health. When I go to an office and I see free menstrual products that aren't like 1970s Tampax, like actually decent, sustainable, new age tampons and pads available for free I'm like, yes, somebody here is thinking about the female menstruators in this office because they exist. They exist. And if you have an office out there that doesn't have free menstrual products, I have some great products to recommend. Very affordable, commercial sales level unit economics. But those are like those little signs that say, we know we have menstruators in the office and they're doing awesome work here and we want to support them. And Darshana, what did you write? Fund more women GPs, and let the audience know what a GP is for those who may not know.
Yeah, so general partner, the data is there, right? Women-led funds tend to have more women CEOs, more women founders, more women on boards, more women on advisory boards. So it's a network effect. And, someone once told me, and this was a while ago, you won't be successful as a woman GP unless you understand the flow of capital in an economy and how it goes from LP to GP to founders. And so it's really important to understand that. It's important to get into that flow and then help to change it. So it's very, very, very hard, but that's what we need to do.
I actually read research. I actually read research on equity analysts, and
female equity analysts are more correct more often, so they're better as investors than men, because men are usually too optimistic.
I was going to say, always not finding enough women on STEM, but when I came to this ecosystem, I mean, I'm happy you brought the women investors because I have not seen many. I mean, I know 5, I think I can count, and now 2 more, so I'm good. So thank you.
We're growing it. Any last thoughts from the panel? Do you have an ask? Anyone have an ask? I'd love to give a platform. I know we have someone, who's fundraising right now? Raise your hand. We're always fundraising, so i.e. everyone's raising their hands. Investors, are you looking for deal flow? What stage?
Early stage MedTech.
Early stage MedTech.
Late stage MedTech.
Late stage MedTech. We got the full spectrum. Come pitch your companies. This has been such an amazing panel. Thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you, Giovanni, for setting me up for this challenge accomplished. Thank you, everybody.